The following program may contain scenes that may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
It could be almost any quiet, suburban Canadian neighborhood. But what went on here in Barrie, Ontario, behind closed doors, would lead to the death of one teenage boy and drastically change the lives of three others.
It was the worst moment of my life. The only words I remember from that night was David saying, "Please help me." He was bleeding everywhere. I didn't really know what was happening. Then I heard Jordan yell, "He has a knife."
It happened just before dawn on February 19th, 2019. 15-year-old David Roman had lived in this house, a privately run foster home, for less than 2 months.
I woke up to hearing the police kick down the front door. As I walked outside the room, I saw David laying on the floor.
This is David Roman in a TikTok video shot shortly before his death.
We can only explore so far. And once we hit that, if we don't find intelligent life, it's just like fucking crazy.
David has now been gone for 2 years, but his room remains unchanged.
And I always keep the lights on in this room because he didn't like when it was dark.
David's parents, Elena and Antonio Roman, came to Canada as refugees from Russia. Divorced when David was 2, they still happily co-parented their son.
Когда я ложусь спать, я каждую ночь о нем думаю. Он был сладкий, светлый ребенок.
David's definitely, even to this day, my best friend. Yeah, we just throw him around here. Even at nighttime, we would talk about like anything.
Indeed, one of David's talents was finding very good friends, beginning with his skateboard buddy, Amar Bagale.
We would just talk and tell stories like those walking through the forest at night. So it would be like pitch black. And he'd be like, "Amar, you go first."
Guys, listen to me.
And Amar and David shared a passion for online gaming.
All right, brothers, we are going to win this for our country!
We would, just role play along, make jokes with each other, try and crack each other up or anything, even if we took it seriously, that was something that was super enjoyable to us.
But despite David's innate intelligence and curiosity, he had a big problem with school.
So he went to school more to socialize than to learn, but he was learning at his own speed, but he was learning. But in grade 9, everything changed.
By the 9th grade, David's mother says she would drop him off at the school's front door, only to have him walk right out the back.
I don't think David was too enthused to go to school, He would have been a great student, actually. If he put the effort and time into it, I genuinely think he would have been, better than most kids, yeah.
But instead, high school was when David began experimenting with marijuana. For his Russian parents, an absolute taboo.
And that's why we were very, strong in our opinion and harsh on David.
And it's why they reached out wherever they could for help with their son.
And I didn't know how to act, how to reason with him, what to do. And then it was the first time when I called child services. And I asked them for help because they must know how to deal with children who has issues. But it was, in my mind, it was my last hope.
Elena and Antonio kept their custodial rights, but David ended up here, an hour's drive away, at a rental property in Barrie, used as a for-profit foster home by a private company called Expanding Horizons Family Services.
I'm here in Richmond Hill with my good friend, Deputy Mayor Carmine Pirelli.
Carmine Pirelli is a local politician and a pal of Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Doing a great job
Thanks,
at the
Deputy
province, and we continue to support you
Thank
in
you.
all of your endeavors.
And for the past decade, Carmine Pirelli has also been the president and chief manager of finance for that private foster care company, Expanding Horizons. Their website proclaimed a specialty in behavioral management and emotional regulation, exactly what David Roman's mother Elena felt her son needed.
He will be with the knowledgeable people who knows how to make sure that kids are learning. We thought that he is at the secure, safe place.
But from the beginning in Barrie, all was not as David's parents were led to believe. For example, the so-called foster parent, Jordan Calver, was only 24.
So he didn't impress me as a father figure, let's put it that way. I couldn't, I was surprised. But then I thought that maybe, because the age gap, Jordan would understand David more than I could.
According to the kids who lived in the house, there were just a few rules. No smoking pot on the property, take turns taking out the garbage, and obey the curfew enforced by the foster parent, Jordan. Both Jordan and David's parents have filed lawsuits. In court documents, the aspiring chef, with no background in foster care or parenting, claims his only training was a couple of days at the local library. He says he was promised there'd be no foster children with violent histories.
So there are no standards for personnel. You can get the same qualifications that would get you a job at your favorite fast food place, Burger King, in your community. You can go work in a residential care provider's home and provide one-to-one support for a young person, as long as you're willing. That I know.
Irwin Ellman is a fixture in the Canadian child protection field, who's been fighting for children in Canada for decades.
In terms of standards of care, there's none, because the licensing, in my opinion now, is about liability. The licensing is about how big is that bedroom? Is there a window in that bedroom so if there's a fire they can get out? How much space is in the home for how many kids? It's bricks and mortars. It's an institutional solution to a human problem. And that's because it's about liability and the system is about money.
Yeah. Is there an argument that putting him in a foster home wasn't the way to approach that?
There's no family support system really in Ontario. The kids in our care, 40% of them graduate high school, compared to almost a little bit over 80% of their peers. So if the parents' goal was to help them get to school, the last place in the province you might want to put them is in the care of a child welfare system.
But into that private foster home in Barrie, David Roman went, just 15, missing his family and his friends.
I remember him being very smart and just very clever. He seemed so much more mature than other kids his age.
David's friend Aria Golpagani saw himself as a big brother, but now he was an hour's drive away, just as David increasingly needed his help.
You know, he was the smaller, kinder, more innocent of the bunch. I'm not trying to point fingers at any other ones, but he was. I think that made him a target.
But neither David nor any of the agencies responsible for his care told his parents about the escalating violence at the Barrie home, though there certainly were signs.
When he went home for weekends and had to go back again, how did he feel?
He always tried to stay home long.
How did that make you feel, Elena?
I feel guilty that I contacted Child Aid Society.
So what more could the child welfare system have done to save David Roman's life? We set out to find some answers. Hello, is Mr. Pirelli around? That's when we come back.
I went out and I saw everyone, and it was David. He was bleeding everywhere. I didn't really know what was happening. I was just listening and watching, and then I heard Jordan yell, "He has a knife."
In February 2019, in that private foster home in Barrie, Ontario, this boy we're calling Evan witnessed something horrific.
At first, I pretended to sleep, and so I thought to myself, well, if he wants to kill me, he's not going to wait for me to wake up to kill me. Because I was like, okay. As I went into my closet, I was like, my room's so small, he can find me. And then I blocked my door. I realize he's stronger than me. He can get through me if I'm blocking the door. A memory in my head that replays all the time is him stabbing David in the neck. And then after I saw that, I was just going to jump off the roof and just run as far as I could.
But that's when Evan saw his 14-year-old housemate, who we'll call James, fleeing down the driveway.
And then I said, "What the heck are you doing?" But he didn't look back at me, he just kept running. And then I saw David's body on my way out. There was blood all over the house, on the walls, on the door.
According to the coroner's report, David Roman had been stabbed 20 times. In the less than 2 months he'd been living at the Expanding Horizons home, alarms had been going off about James, who's now charged with first-degree murder.
He was still aggressive to everybody else, but he was more aggressive towards David.
A court filing alleges that James had a history of serious behavioral issues and violence. He'd also told the other boys he'd spent time in juvenile detention. When James arrived at the house in Barrie in December 2018, almost immediately he tried to rob this nearby convenience store. The foster parent, Jordan, was overwhelmed and afraid of the 14-year-old. He says he was told by Expanding Horizons to use Google to resolve some of the problems, but that James had to stay.
And he talked to me about how he wanted and needed more staff, but nobody was really helping him and giving him what he needed.
And life in the foster home was especially weighing on David Roman. His friend Aria says he could see David's carefree personality slipping away.
They took every opportunity and every hope he had away.
I can't.
And then they expected him to be able to pull it all together again. Distant from his community and friends and family. Where the saying is it takes a village to raise a child, but they shoved 4 kids in a building with 1 adult, you know? Like, none of that makes sense to me.
And tensions in the house kept getting worse. On February 17th, 2019, James broke down a door to get into the foster parents' room. Once again, he was arrested by the Barrie police.
It's so many thoughts in my head. Somehow, they should have been informing us if we want to continue keeping our son there, if he will be placed with a person with a history of mental illness and violence.
Right.
Absolutely.
If you'd known that somebody in that house had a record of this sort.
David would be home the same day we knew that it's not safe. Because David was there not because we wanted to punish him. We thought that he is getting help.
It's breathtaking in its outrageousness. And I know, because I've heard it before, that the first question people will ask is, how could that happen? But it does.
How could it happen? You've been in this field for decades. How could it happen?
I'm not even going to say it's complicated. I'm going to say there's a lot of reasons, not just one reason. The first is, I would say, the system does not focus on young people. It does not listen to children. It does not.
After David Roman died, the Ontario Ministry of Children conducted an investigation into Expanding Horizons Family Services. They haven't shared the results. But they did impose conditions, one of which was that the company must train its foster parents to de-escalate and resolve safely any conflict situations in its homes. Unfortunately, too late for the victims in that house in Barrie. We already introduced you to Expanding Horizons President Carmine Pirelli, whose day job is as Deputy Mayor of Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Well,
Thank you for coming to
appreciate it.
City Fest.
Thank
and we'll
you.
see you all next year.
Until it was taken down last fall, the company website identified the other senior executive as Program Director Frank LaGreco, seen here with his wife Karen. She's listed as the company's registered behavior consultant, but we could find no professional authority in Ontario responsible for registering behavior consultants. And the Fifth Estate editorial team found other obvious problems. The woman named as executive director of Expanding Horizons says she didn't have that job at all. And when she complained to the company and asked that her name be taken off the website, they didn't do it. The lawyer listed as legal counsel wasn't a licensed lawyer. He'd given that up in 2018 when it was learned that he had misappropriated almost $500,000 from clients. And the so-called psychiatric consultant wasn't a licensed psychiatrist. In fact, he wasn't a licensed doctor. He'd given up that license a number of years before. Yet despite all of that, those names remained on the Expanding Horizons website. It was 8 months after David's death that the company applied to renew its foster home license in Ontario, which was approved.
Well, I can't comment on the specifics of this individual case that you're referring to.
Jill Dunlop is Ontario's Associate Minister for Children. She acknowledges that some official agency should have uncovered the same false claims by Expanding Horizons that we did.
I recognize that we can do better. I want to do better, and that's why, as part of modernization, we're continuing to consult with the sector to work together to collaborate and to ensure that the children in care are receiving the best care possible and achieving the best outcomes in life.
But tragically, that best outcome won't be achieved by David Roman. And his mother, Elena, says he wasn't the only one put in the wrong place at the wrong time in that foster home. She believes that James, the now 16-year-old accused in David's death, was also a victim. Their foster brother, Evan, feels the same way.
I blame the people that put him in the house. Obviously, he's at fault, but if he was placed in the proper housing, proper stuff that he needed, this wouldn't have happened. And that's the people who put him in the house's fault.
And the 3 Ontario Children's Aid Societies responsible for the care of the boys in the Barrie foster home responded to us by saying this: serious systemic issues ranging from the quality of care provided in residential services, the need for more robust staff training, and the need for an improved system of licensing and oversight must be addressed. Hello, is Mr. Pirelli there, please? As for the responsibility of Expanding Horizons, we reached out repeatedly to company president Carmine Pirelli, eventually going to his house. Is Mr. Pirelli around? But to no avail. And we attempted to reach program director Frank LaGreco on numerous occasions. Is Frank around, please? LaGreco's lawyer advised him not to speak with us. And though Carmine Pirelli is deputy mayor of Richmond Hill, Ontario, David Roman's hometown, and though David died in his company's care, Pirelli never got back to us either. And to this day, the other foster brothers still suffer the trauma of that February morning in 2019.
I see everything that happened that morning, but in my dream, I saw every single thing. Like I saw every time he was stabbed, I saw everything. And then court cases and him getting out and then coming into my house and killing me. And then I wake up every single night.
David Roman's parents now are suing the Children's Aid Societies which placed their son and the others in that foster home, as well as the company that operated it, Expanding Horizons. But they know nothing can ever fill the void left behind by David.
When you stand back now, do you become more calm about it or angrier about it?
Angry.
Of course, angry.
What did you lose that night?
I lost a part of me, you know, a part of my childhood. Like, I would do anything, right, to, you know, to take David back and have him again, you know. But I gained the realization that there are some things that you just don't get back in life, you know. And there are some things that you really just need to cherish every second you have it.
We can only explore so far, because if we never find any intelligent life,